Everyone, welcome to another Fifth Person Roundtable discussion. My name is Adam, I'm the editor of the Fifth Person, and in this video, we're going to talk about whether Singapore retail REITs can survive in a post-COVID world. Alright, so with me today, once again, I have Rusmin.
Hi everyone.
Victor.
Hi.
They're the co-founders of the Fifth Person, and we have our lead analyst, Kenny.
Hello.
So welcome to our discussion, and let's just get right to it. So I think, COVID-19 has been once in a century event, where it's just lockdown on economies, no one is going out during the peak of the pandemic. So things are a lot better now, but we still have some questions about whether life will return to the things as they were back to normal, and we'll still do the things like we used to do. And one of them is basically whether we'll still be shopping in malls and whether retail is going to evolve. Alright, so we're going to talk about whether Singapore retail REITs can survive in a post-COVID world. So just to give you some statistics, during quarter one of this year, retail REITs were really hit. And the DPU for Capital Land Mall Trust, for example, fell 70.3% for that quarter. It's recovered somewhat in quarter two. It's still down 27%. So it's not back to where the pre-COVID levels are like. So I'm going to ask my guests today, and we're going to find out whether, Singapore REITs can survive. So what do you think, guys? Do you think, what's going to happen in a post-COVID world for Singapore retail REITs?
I think for the Capital Land Mall Trust, the result for the first quarter, the drop was quite significant because a bulk of the drop in terms of DPU, the management actually retained the distribution because at the time during the peak of the COVID-19, we do not know how bad the situation is going to get, right? So, so actually, if you look at the first half result of the CMT in terms of DPU, it's actually dropped by around 49%, almost half to 2.96 cents. But actually, if you were to exclude that, let's say they don't retain those distribution per unit, the drop is actually only about 25%, which is still quite bad. So I think the question now is whether retail is going to stay relevant post-COVID-19. This is something that we are definitely going to look at, right? Because if you were to look at the phase one during the peak of the lockdown, I think all of us essentially
we're just staying at home, right?
We're staying at home. Yeah. There were a lot of things that we couldn't do. We couldn't get out. We couldn't do social visit. Don't even have family visits. You can't go to the gym. You can't.
Okay, don't depress me anymore. It's okay. Yeah. It's past. We passed that. But yeah. It was really terrible in phase one.
Yeah. So we are also working from home, and essentially, very few of us actually went to the mall. Yeah. And only for the essential services. So supermarkets are actually still open, and if you look at a lot of retailers in shopping malls, a lot of them are actually closed. In fact, they are actually reporting that 30% of the tenants will actually remain open during the COVID-19. The rest of the 70% actually shut the door because government forced them to do so, right, in order to contain the virus. And as we progressively move to phase two, things are getting better. I think as of today, when we do this interview, 99% of the tenants are actually back online. Stores are coming online. Traffics are back to the mall. And I think based on the stats that I'm looking at, like FCT, the traffic footfall is still hanging at around 60 to 70% of the pre-COVID level. All right. So, but if you look at the tenant sales, actually dropped by as much as 80% in the city malls area. I'm just basing it on the Wisma Atria, which is a mall in the Orchard Road area, which is a good indication of the surrounding mall, how hard they're going to perform. Whereas for Suburban Mall, they have done quite well actually. The tenant sales actually dropped only about 46%, about half. Is not as bad as compared to the city mall. Okay, the main reason is because I think most of us are staying home and we still visit suburban mall, neighborhood malls as compared to city. Unless you stay in city, but most of the time we have tourists over there. But because of the travel restriction, I think Singapore has really no tourists coming in. Okay, so that affected them quite badly. Okay, so phase two tenant sales have actually almost recovered. Actually, if I look at the recent stat in July 2020, malls that owns by Fraser Centrepoint Trust, which own North Point, Causeway Point, I think their tenant sales have actually reached back to pre-COVID level, which is a good indication that people are coming back to the malls. But traffic is still down. They are still down about 30%, basically still 70% of the pre-COVID level. So people are still coming in. It's just that currently now there are a lot of restrictions, still few restrictions in place, like social distancing, and then you have to queue up to do your safe entry, which is
Yeah,
very,
I mean, if you think about it, it's still very troublesome to go to the mall, right? You got to safe entry in, and not just into the mall, but you want to visit an individual shop, you got to do another safe entry, and it can get quite tiring.
It's a big trouble.
And there have been certain times I wanted to visit. I go to the mall, sure, because I need to buy stuff and do things here and there. But there have been times where I thought of going to a particular shop, but then I realized I had to whip out my phone again to do safe entry, and I realized I just kind of like skipped going to that particular shop because I just don't want to pull out my phone another time.
And the worst thing is that when you are using an iPhone 10 or 11, you wear a mask, they couldn't detect your face, and you have to enter a PIN code. It's a big,
so the
big
iPhone
trouble.
8 users are doing well now because you just use their thumb and then they just like access everything. So it is quite of a pain to, with the safe entry. But we understand the need for having safe entry. It's something that we all must do. But yeah, so what you're saying is that, traffic has recovered, shopper traffic has recovered in phase 2. Right.
As phase 2, but it's still not yet to the pre-COVID level because they are now still about 60-70%, both in the city malls and the suburban malls. Right? But the tenant sales actually picked up a lot in July. For suburban malls, I think we're looking at almost full recovery to pre-COVID level. City mall obviously are still down.
All right, so I want to bring Kenny and Victor into this and just ask them on a personal level. When you live in different areas, I would assume then, and you go to the malls. You guys go to the malls?
Yeah, definitely.
I just had to check. Maybe you guys are still staying around. I don't know. No. Okay, so you guys go to the mall, and what is your take right now when you visit the mall? What is when you as a shopper? What is the traffic like? What is the activity like in the malls that you frequent? Because I go to the malls in my area. I don't know what it's like in other areas in Singapore.
So I go to the malls that's close to my house is actually VivoCity.
Okay.
So of course, like what Rusmin mentioned, during the circuit breaker period, right? There's literally, I think there's no one at the mall. It's so quiet. Everybody is just at the fair price. Right, so
essential.
Essential. And I was so bored that every day I just go to fair price. Okay, so then, but right now I've been visiting VivoCity, and when I go down there, especially on a weekend, it's super crowded. Okay, I mean the stats that Rusmin give you, it seems like it haven't recovered fully to the pre-COVID level,
80%.
Yeah, 80%. But
80%,
based on my eyes, I see it feels like it's back to
normal.
Back to normal. It's so crowded, right?
Yeah.
It's just that there's lesser events happening at VivoCity because they used to have a space at the exhibition at the roadshow at the first level, right? But right now there's no. But then the crowd is still a lot.
So what about you, Kenny? What is the mall that you visit like?
So recently, of course, I like to go to the Funan Mall because it's quite interesting. There are multiple things that you can do. There's rock climbing and everything. But mostly I go there for the ramen. That's quite cool. You
go all the way to Funan for ramen?
Yes, it's worth going for food, right? The food that you like, Afuri ramen, just in case you guys are interested. Yeah, it's really nice. But the thing is that it's relatively quiet, although it's a relatively new mall with the new attractions, but it's quite quiet. At the same time, I think I noticed like those, I went to multiple malls like Great World City, Orchard, and of course Bugis Plus. I realized like, for example, Bugis Plus, right, the malls that have more like those small, medium businesses, right, they have their own brands. Those are the ones that tend to suffer the most, and because there's not that much of an attraction. So at a certain point, I actually see that there's actually 30% of the stores, around 30% based on what I can see, is closed because they don't even see that it's worth opening to make that kind of money.
So it's like the SMEs, the smaller retailers just don't have the pockets that are deep enough to basically remain open or even stay in business.
Yes.
For the bigger brands, they can probably last through, they went through the circuit breaker and now they're back to business. And people recognize these bigger brands and they will continue to shop with them, when things go back to normal. So I just want to ask, there's a difference between, prime malls and suburban malls. What's the difference between these two malls? Because some people might think that a prime mall is in a better prime location. That should be, a better mall to own for a REIT. But is that really true? Is there a major difference between prime and prime city malls and suburban malls?
Suburban malls generally they are more attractive to the people who live nearby the area, right? Yeah. So if you look at maybe North Point, for example, people who live in Yishun, they generally prefer to visit North Point because that is the only malls in there. And it's a lot more convenient. And of course, during the lockdown, people generally don't want to travel that far. and they just visit the neighborhood mall during their weekends. But the city mall, generally, you have a lot more tourists that actually visited those malls. And the most famous one in Singapore is a stretch along the Orchard Road, right, where people visit Ngee City, Takashimaya, Wisma, and then Paragon. Okay, so those are some of the malls that are a lot more popular. Okay, so they are more dependent on tourists versus Suburban Mall, which are mostly dependent on local, right? So they tend to perform a lot better in a time of crisis, in a time of like pandemic, where locals still live here, right? They still go to the mall for their essential services. They go for the haircut, except during the peak of the lockdown, you can't even do a haircut. So but now we are all back to almost normal. I think suburban mall generally have done fairly better as compared to city mall.
So you're saying that the suburban malls are just more resilient overall because people who live in that neighborhood still need to pick up the essentials, or maybe because I think a lot of the good suburban malls are linked to transport nodes as well. So when you get off the MRT station or the bus interchange, the mall is right there. And it's on your way home. You got to walk through the mall, go through the shops, and I mean now with safe entry is a bit of a hassle if you really want to get into the mall. But because of the way where they are located, suburban malls are just generally they serve the needs of that catchment area, whereas the prime malls, they're a bit more volatile, right? Based on the economic conditions. So that's what you see. Okay. So I think we can talk about what about the supply of Singapore retail space? I think that's one of the things that we need to consider, because even though we can see that maybe Singaporeans are going back to the malls, it's about 70-80% back to pre-COVID levels, the shopper traffic. But that's on the demand side. What about the supply side? We know about what's happening in the US, where basically tons, malls everywhere are closing down. Is this a different situation over there? But what's happening in Singapore? Do you think there's too much supply coming on?
In Singapore, I think generally the oversupply situation for shopping malls are quite manageable. In fact, the overall island of retail space, and over 90% of them actually occupied. So what this means is that the malls here are, you go to any shopping mall, you don't see a empty mall or ghost mall where you don't have tenants that shut down.
But there are some few like that, right?
There are selectively some malls that are not doing quite well. Okay, but based on stats that we have, I think we can safe to say that we don't really have an oversupply situation, because if you look at the floor space per capita as compared to US, I think generally Singapore is only like 5.8 square feet. Based on the level areas compared to US, which is around 23, right, which is a lot higher. So the supply in the US is a lot bigger as compared to Singapore, right? So Singapore, I think we don't really suffer from oversupply issue, mainly because the URA, I think they are or rather government, they are actually very strict when it comes to releasing land for sales. Or when it comes to retail, because they don't want to have a situation where there's oversupply situation and a lot of landlords are not doing well and bank will not do well. Okay, so generally there isn't any big problem when it comes to that. So and the government control the land supply very well as well. Okay,
so there's a lot of proper planning.
planning.
I mean, because for example, if I go to the cafe at next to Dhoby Ghaut, if you go to that mall, you see like basically maybe half the mall is closed, right? And hardly any shops open and all that. And it's right there in a pretty prime location. But I guess it's just the mall just didn't work out. I don't know. Have you guys been there recently?
Yeah, I think it's all about the mix of tenants really, and what draws the crowd and what kind of crowd. I think there wasn't proper planning in place, I guess.
Okay.
So just you bring up a very good example of the Cathay, right? That mall is not a mall that is owned by any REITs in Singapore. So I just want to bring again the light on when it comes to REITs. A lot of malls that are owned by REITs, they are more or less managed professionally. Okay, so you have a team of professionals.
So you're saying the Cathay people are not professional?
That's not what I meant. But the having advantage of REIT structure, again, they are whole accountable. Their main job for a REIT manager is to make sure that the malls are at their most efficient level, and they're always constantly looking at the tenancy mix, as what Kenny has pointed out.
I think there's more pressure from when it's a publicly listed entity. Is a lot more. You got to do things a lot more scrutinized and all that.
So that itself will help when the malls is managed by professional managers, and if you also look at some of the malls that have not been doing well, are mostly, some of them are strata title mall.
Okay.
Like you look at the Far East Plaza.
Yeah.
It used to be very vibrant. That was like
20 years ago.
I used to visit the mall, right?
Yeah.
And I just went there yesterday. But the malls again, the traffic
What
is
were you
quite
doing
bad.
Yeah.
Well, I was at the Scott Square. It's just nearby,
Okay,
so
okay.
sometimes you park.
I
your
think
car
Cathay
there.
also, their location also, they are just very close to Plaza Sing, you know. So you got these two malls that over there, straight away you will just feel like you want to go Plaza Sing instead of going to Cathay.
Maybe since you're looking at the Cathay Mall, if you look at it, the main draw for Cathay Mall is against its moviegoers, right?
Yeah.
People who go there, cinema. And now because of the COVID-19, I think I'm not going to
I've not
cinema
been to the
for
theatre since,
more than half a year. Yeah, so I think generally any cinema operators, they actually hasn't been doing well. So that could explain why the traffic over there is a lot poorer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to link it back. So it's not because there's an oversupply situation. That's why you see situations like the cafe or like Far East Plaza. It's actually more of like the way they're running that individual mall. It just doesn't seem to attract shoppers efficiently. So it's not an oversupply situation, which is very different from the US where they have a lot more oversupply. I would guess is that's what's happening in the US.
Yeah.
And I guess the habits in the US are also slightly different from what's happening in Singapore as well, because we are like a city state. We tend to go out, whereas in the US maybe you would have to drive 15, 20, 30 minutes to get to the strip mall, and if there are too many strip malls everywhere, there's really no difference from another strip mall, and then you just kind of just die out if there's an oversupply.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of culture, the Americans, let's say we compare to East and the West, Americans, I think they don't, generally on the weekends, they don't really go to shopping mall, right? They go to
there's so many options there. You can
options
do so
over
many
there.
different things.
They can do a road trip. In Singapore, we can't. Right?
Okay, road trip to
Oh well. Now you
the PIE road trip.
Actually, Americans actually love to consume it. If you look at it, right, out in the US, right, retail space per capita, per person, right, US is the largest or the highest among all countries, right? It's actually 40% above Canada, which is the second highest at 16.8 square feet per capita, right? And but in the US, it's 23.5 square feet per capita. And of course, right now they have an issue, right? Because you can see retail vacancy rate actually went up from 11.4% in Q2 2019 to 20% in Q2 2020 because of the COVID-19 situation. At the same time, because of this COVID-19 situation, it's causing a lot of retailers who are on the verge of bankruptcy to go bankrupt, go bust, basically to shut down, right? Right. So I mean, I'm sure you guys are familiar with these names. They are publicly listed names, right? You have J. Crew, you have Neiman Marcus, even Macy's. Although they got some funding just to hang on, but I think it's just a matter of time before they go bankrupt. So all these stores are just, and Sears as well, all these stores are basically, they used to be relevant, but not anymore today, because when you go to a departmental store, there's no appeal to it. It's expensive. They take up a lot of shopping space. So they have to factor all those costs into the stuff that they are selling, right? The things that they are selling. And at the same time, nowadays, people like to go online. They like to have that kind of experience, and they like to have that kind of engagement, interaction, and they would like to hear reviews or read reviews of the products, which you cannot get at a departmental store where you're just left alone to do your things until you really need something and you go and find someone. And more often than not, that person does not have any idea whether one thing is better than the other and why, as opposed to, let's say you go to a specialty pet store, right, somewhere where the person who's attending to you also have a dog or cat. They understand what it's like from an owner's perspective, what you need and what's required. So I think moving forward, when it comes to retailing, it is all the specialty stores in the US that will survive, maybe like Sephora, Ulta, that people require is an essential, and where e-commerce is not something that can be replaced, right? You cannot replace the feel of the cosmetic on your skin or skincare products on your skin, and you just have to go down, and it cannot be replaced by using like a phone to see what's like on your face, how it looks, how the color looks on your face.
Or whether you're allergic to a particular, product, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you gotta try certain things. So I think we're going to bring in e-commerce pretty soon because, that's a threat that a lot of people see when it comes to retail. A lot of people bring it up during the AGMs at, the REITs that I go to. But we just want to wrap it up. So we don't see an oversupply situation happening in Singapore.
Yeah, even for the next 5 years, I think the supply coming online is only about 300,000 square feet, and over the next 3 to 5 years. So the supply is really limited because a lot of them already come online in 2019, where we saw Changi Jewel at Changi, which is a
big one.
Big one, right? And then you have Paya Lebar Quarters, yes, and then you have also Funan, which actually opened its door in 2019.
So the supply looks good.
Limited
in Singapore. We probably won't have a retail apocalypse like what's happening, what they call the retail apocalypse in the US. That's probably not going to happen here. So let's go into e-commerce now, because I think Kenny was mentioning that, retail is evolving, and part of the reason why there's a retail apocalypse in the US is that all these big box retailers, departmental stores, a lot of the things that you can get there, you can get online. There's really not a reason to drive half an hour to a strip mall in the US to get something where you can just order from Amazon online. It arrives in a day or two, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're Amazon Prime and all that. So that's the threat of e-commerce, and I think we can discuss, what will e-commerce affect retail in Singapore as well? What do you guys think?
I think that humans are just social creatures,
Okay.
right? I mean, especially when you're in Singapore, if you don't go to mall, what can you do, right? I mean, there's really nothing much to do in Singapore except going to the mall. And the weather is very hot. You go into the mall. To put things to more perspective, is that if you look at the e-commerce sales in the US market, is about 16% in 2019. The latest 2020 figure should be much higher figure. So the Singapore one is about
around 5% to 8%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at the growth of e-commerce in the US, it's about 12 to 14% per annum. Then you have the retail sales is still growing, but it's just 3 to 4% per annum. So you can roughly see similar trends in the US in Singapore context, but just that Singapore probably will be much slower because, like I said, we go to the mall very often. But in the US, when you want to go to one mall or you want to purchase certain things that maybe is not in your state, you have to drive an hour or 2 hours just to go to another location, right? It does not make sense. So you rather, you add up your petrol cost and everything. It does not make sense just ordering online on Amazon and it shipped to your house straight away with the low cost, right?
But but I miss the outlet mall in US. Things are so over there.
It's been a great experience to go down.
Yeah. So I think, based on this e-commerce thing, right, in the past, right, there's what we call like offline customers and online customers. So your offline customers will go to the physical store. Then there's some people who are always very advanced in technology. They are the online customer. They need to buy it online. Then retail store starts to open their online channel to reach out to this type of online customers, right? But along the way, the things have developed, especially during this COVID-19 situation, right? The consumer can no longer perceive between the offline, and this is what we call cross channels part that they're doing. Okay, but in moving forward, I think we are moving more towards omni-channel, which is more experience based, where the company have online, and offline, and they are interlinked. You go to the store, you can experience augmented reality. You can see your product online on your mobile phone, but you're in the store. Your online on your mobile phone, right, becomes like a catalog. You can order and tell them, okay, ship to my house, or I can order online and I go down to the store and collect. Yeah. So that I think will be the future of retail moving forward. Those who actually move towards this direction will survive, but those who do not move to this direction, they may face a problem in the future.
So I think the question now, of course, if you look at the recent stats released by Singapore's Department of Statistics, I think we are looking at e-commerce as a percentage of total retail store. In Feb, e-commerce contributed about 7.4%. If we move on to March, where things get worse, it's actually gone up to 18%. Actually, more and more people are shopping online for the first time in Singapore, right? So, and then if you look at April, it's also fluctuating at about 17.8%. And May, when the full lockdown was actually introduced, the circuit breaker thing, e-commerce as a percentage of total retail sales has gone up to about 24.5%. And then as the country opened up, we moved to phase 2, June. itself, I think the percentage of the retail sales is actually dropped to about 18%. And based on the latest data that I have on July, it has fallen back to 11%. Okay, so
and then you were saying pre-COVID it was about 5-7%.
about 5 to 8%,
okay.
around that range. So it means that, I mean, this is a very good indication that people actually, or Singaporeans actually prefer to buy things offline. So basically, based on this trend that we are looking at, I think it is safe to say that retail malls in Singapore were done quite okay, even post COVID-19, because the data has shown us.
So what you're basically saying is that even though yes, e-commerce is here to stay, we Singaporeans still like to visit the mall and do our shopping there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of different from the US where, you know, if something is like an hour's drive away, you probably don't want to drive it just to pick that up. You know, it's like a day trip almost.
Yeah.
I think because in the US, if the mall have the brands that they really want, they will go to that area. But those that are too far off, where you have to drive an hour or two, they will shop online. But the thing is, if we were to take this to the extreme, like in the COVID-19 situation where you have to do everything online, just a purely e-commerce, buy everything, food, your essentials all online, your home feels like a prison, right?
Okay.
You feel trapped at home and everything. After some time, right, you're just waiting for someone to serve you, bring things to you. But in the end, we have the need to have a change of environment, to socialize with our friends, especially in Singapore. And when we socialize, the only thing that we go to is basically to go out and eat, and these restaurants are located in the malls, and then these malls will benefit from the traffic. Eventually, after you eat, you can look at other stuff or watch movie, and that will bring in more sales for the other retailers.
I still remember during the lockdown, I was craving for some Japanese food, so I tried to order some Japanese sushi. Sushi Tei is one of them.
Okay.
And then by the time we reached my house and I ate it, it just
tasted like Chinese
something
food.
is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is not right. It isn't that fresh as compared to if you were to eat it on the spot. So sometimes e-commerce, of course, or even the food delivery, all these services, of course, I'm using them more and more often. But there are certain foods that you still have to go down to the mall itself and then dine in. The food is just different, right? So
I mean, food is something that you have to experience. You got to eat the thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like retail for like shops, like products, like items, you know, this you can compare versus, you know, ordering something online, having it delivered. I mean, there's the point of instant gratification where you don't want to wait even a few days for it to come. But some people love receiving parcels. You know, it's very exciting. You have a parcel and you want to open it up and see what you have, and then it's done.
Generally, for myself, my personal shopping habits is that I will still buy things like from platforms like Q10, Shopee, or even Lazada's. Most of these are items, right? Electronics or gadgets. Those I think pretty much have moved online, and that's probably the reason why Amazon has done pretty well, because you don't really need to if you're buying a phone or you're buying for a camera, all you need to do is you go to the YouTube and then watch some review, and they are good, you just get them buy and then ship it to your house. That's it.
So that's my question, because that's the habit that's being more and more, it's more and more common nowadays. Even you are buying stuff online, you go to a platform like Q10 or Lazada or Amazon, and you just buy stuff online. So what's going to happen to the retail shops, you know, the physical retail malls?
I think the retail scene is going to change drastically, because now it's all the online and offline is going to the retail space is going to blur. It's going to be the same thing actually. Maybe in the future, retail stores will be almost like a gallery kind. It's all about selling the experience, going there, testing out, and then they might have fewer stores, but at the end of the day, you can just go to multiple stores, maybe go home empty-handed, and by the time you reach home, maybe all your parcels will be there, like at night, like everything will be delivered. Because nowadays, Amazon started with 2-day shipping. After that, they went to 1 day, and now they are trying to deliver within 4 hours. But who knows? Next time, maybe 1 or 2 hours, it'll reach
maybe
your
you
house.
have drones delivering items to your house next time.
Yes.
Right. So that would be a big problem. I think there will be a big fundamental shift for a lot of traditional retailers.
Okay. So you think if the malls and the shops don't evolve to meet because you can get so many items online nowadays, and it has the mall and the physical shop has to evolve into more of an experiential experiential experience. So like more of an experience, you go there, you actually test the product out, or like you're saying, Kenny, in terms of cosmetics, you have to, sometimes you want to see how that blush looks on your skin, because you can't really tell. right? I mean, have you tried that yourself?
Based on research, yes.
But there's certain things that you want to try, or maybe any other examples of like very more forward-thinking retailers that have blurred the lines. And they also sell online, but they still have physical shops for you to come down and experience the product, experience the brand.
I think if you look at this clothing brand called Love Bonito, they started off online, right?
Yep.
If physical store going to die, right, they won't want to open a physical store. But in the end, they still open a physical store. So I think you go inside Love Bonito, their new stores, right? They build a lot of Instagrammable spots for you to take photos, right? All this actually attracts people to go into their stores. Then they give you free services like alterations, and they also got personal stylists out there to help you to style your clothings and all this, right? So I think this is the future of retail.
Yeah, I think another example in the US is basically Nike. Nike is really on the forefront of this. They started in the past to cut down all the middlemen, all the stores that they distribute through to the customer. Right now, they go direct to customers or either through their flagship stores where you have all the different experience in different, they have the football corner, basketball corner, and they have that running corner where they have treadmill, everything for you to test out. And at the same time, on the app, they are able to give you this app where you can put your feet there and they'll measure your feet size, see whether it fits that particular shoe. I think one thing that will differentiate the retailers in the future compared to what it is today is based on data. So a lot of these retailers, they have this login where they track what you buy and where you buy from regularly. So every Nike store in different locations like stock up differently because based on your postal code, they realize, oh, okay, maybe most people around this area like basketball shoes, like this kind of color and so on and so forth. And they will stock up in that manner to appeal to you. And at the same time, they are focused on so-called targeted marketing because they know your taste. They're able to target not through Facebook, but directly to you through email or SMS or message, to reach you. So it's really a different. So you really need to have that kind of edge and the resources to compete effectively with all those brands, well-established brands. So in the future, what I see is going to happen is most people will try to build offline first, online retail brands because it's cheaper to do that way and it's cheaper to distribute things through the web warehouse, right? Store and it's all about building a brand. Once they're successful online, that's when they go offline.
Yeah. A perfect example for that would be Amazon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are well known for the company that killed all the traditional bookstore.
Yeah.
And when I was at the Seattle a few years ago, I visited Amazon bookstore.
Yeah.
So they started online and then they moved offline after all the competitors die and then they just come back and then dominate the scene. Okay, so Amazon is one of the big players.
But I think if you go look at their bookstore, right, is the interesting thing is that they are being very efficient in their bookstore. They only put the top rating books in the bookstore. It's not like the old school bookstore where they put all stuff everything in, right? So because they only put the top rating books, right, you realize their bookstore can be small and compact,
Turnover is more efficient.
It's more efficient in running the business. So that, like, what can you say? In future, like, the retailers that use data, right, will be the future. If you are someone who open a store and hope somebody come in and you don't collect the data of your customer, you don't understand your customer, you are going to die in the future, right?
Yeah. Because I think, I think that's a good point because, you want all those like books that no one really reads, you want to buy it, you just get to get that online, right?
Yeah.
Then they ship it to you. But for the things that, that are more popular, people are looking at, you probably want that in a physical store in a high traffic location, and you're still going to get, decent, or very good sales out of that as well. Yeah, so I think we're starting to see. I don't think it's the future. Actually, I think it's going to be happening pretty in the near future. Actually, it's even right now.
It's happening.
It's happening already. You see, like Love Bonito is a local brand, and they're doing a great job at bringing, the offline physical experience of shopping with that brand offline, right? Rather than just having everything.
Actually, the way I see it is because they want to be omnipresent. The way I say it, So in a way, the store can be closed, but within for 24 hours, when you feel like shopping, whether it's through your phone or online when you're scrolling through the web page, right? They want you to be spending. So when you're on your way home, even when you're tired, mentally tired from work, some people, they just scroll through like Lazada or like shop online and just like spend and have it sent to the house. It just feels. Some people feels like think that shopping is a way to relieve stress, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Therapy.
I think another great example I can bring up is probably Apple. I think Apple is
Yeah.
An iPhone is an iPhone, a Mac is a Mac. There's no difference. And you can get it online.
Yep.
Right? But you still have Apple stores everywhere in the world because it's an experience walking into an Apple store.
Yep.
You get to like touch everything they have and then look at the price tag and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why is it so expensive?
Yeah. You know, I probably can buy a Mac online, but if I want to buy something now, I'll go to the one at the Marina Bay, the one that looks like a ball. That's
Because
really
it looks beautiful, right?
Yeah.
The new one, right?
It's new. It's something that you can experience, and people go there. I don't know if there's a queue.
I think Apple is really the pioneer in all this retail experience.
So like you're saying, Nike is because it's a physical sport, brand. You can do a lot of activities with that. So I think for retailers, if they want to thrive in the post-COVID world, they can't just sell stuff that you can get online. You gotta add more to that. It's the omni-channel experience where you get to experience with your brand, your service, and testing out the product and all that. And if you really want to, you can still go back to their website and just buy it, and they still get the sale. But the shop is there for you to interact with them, and get to really enjoy the brand. That's what.
So in the past, I mean, if you look at a lot of shopping malls, a lot of tenants actually rely on the shopping mall to draw the traffic. But now we are looking at retailers that are drawing the traffic to the mall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
which is, I think things are changing in that directions. And
it works both ways. The mall wants high quality tenants as well because I think I remember Starbucks is, for example, a high quality tenant. The mall usually wants a Starbucks in the mall because that drives traffic.
Haidilao again.
Haidilao as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just like you said, the mall is the one in charge nowadays. You have good high quality tenants that the mall wants as well. And I think I want to bring another point about omni-channel retailing because I remember I wanted to shop at Decathlon and you can go to their website and then actually buy online and then just go to the mall and to the shop in 2 hours and pick it up. So it's kind of like physical stores now are acting as like logistics points for retailers as well. Yeah, so I think we can conclude that retail is here to stay, but the way retail is done is going to change.
Yep.
And the retailers and the malls that keep up with the times will still survive in a post-COVID world, and they may even thrive because I think we're not going to stop socializing, we're not going to stop shopping, even though the online channel is there. So which REITs, Singapore retail REITs, can we consider that are doing a good job with their retail? They're evolving, they're staying at the forefront of all these changes and all that.
I think the big ones for retail REITs in Singapore are like CapitaLand Mall Trust, and they are probably one of the best in terms of leading when it comes to innovation. I think Funan is a good example. They have transformed the entire Funan IT mall, the old one, where they used to have a lot of electronic shop, and now if you go to Funan, things are a lot different. You have rock climbing, Tree of Life.
You can play soccer.
You can play soccer on the rooftop, and the stores there are a lot more experiential compared to the previous old Funan IT mall. So and also you have another big one is the Fraser Centrepoint Trust. Okay, so these guys are actually doing quite well. And of course, there are other retail REITs like Landlease. Of course, they are pretty new. They just got IPO, but they own one of the very prime shopping mall in Singapore, 313 Somerset. And of course, you have SPH, which own Paragon. Most of the tenants are mostly luxury or high end. And the thing about high end is that you still want to go to the physical shop and buy because you want authentic products instead of buying things online because you're not sure whether these are really authentic. So retail REITs, as long as they can adapt to the changing of consumer trends, I think they should done very well. But for Strata Titan Mall, I think those are the malls that will continue to struggle because you have different owners in one single mall and everyone wants to lease out to different tenants. So you have no control over tenancy mix, which is a big problem. It's a fundamental issue with the Strata Titan Mall.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because no one's really in charge. Some of the strata title properties, I mean not just malls, but just in general, like the office blocks as well.
Maybe I just give you an example. Star Hill Gallery, which they own Wisma Atria, and if you thought that they own the whole building of Wisma Atria, no, they only own I think 3/4 of the floor space, and the other 1/4 was actually owned by Isetan, and they always have the internal struggle between Isetan and Star Hill Global, the management, right? They always trying to compete with each other, and then Isetan will lease out their space at a much lower rent per square foot. They used to have 2 food court on top of level 4, right? Isetan actually leased out to Japan Food, and they tried out the new concept, but it didn't work out, and in the end they have to close down. So it's a big problem to manage the strata title mall.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's one of the challenges. I mean, I remember being at the Starry Global AGM, and the chairman always talks about wanting to take over what's left of Wisma. So they're in control. They're a lot more flexible in the way they can deal with the tenants. They were even talking about adding a hotel component, because then if you have the whole property, you can actually do things like that because you have the whole space and all that.
Yeah.
So I saw you're pointing out a few of the Singapore retail REITs like Capital Land Mall Trust. Fraser's Centrepoint.
Yeah, the big one, I think those are pretty much well managed.
Yeah,
and they will be able to survive the post-COVID world.
And they should have the experience and the track record of managing a mall pretty well. But I guess I point out that Capital Land Mall Trust is going to possibly merge with Capital Land Commercial Trust, which is an office REIT, office commercial REIT. So then that will kind of like change the
portfolio diversification, the portfolio structure.
The asset mix of that particular REIT.
They're going to have, I think, office that's coming in because once they merge with Capital Land Commercial Trust, it's going to be a very diversified portfolio instead of just a pure retail like Fraser Centrepoint Trust.
So any other pure play Singapore retail besides
SPH?
REIT.
They own Paragon and then Clementi Malls. They may in the future acquire Seletar Mall.
They may have some properties in Australia as well, right?
Yeah.
So
but which is also
play,
retail in terms of exposure. But of course, nowadays I think we can expect more retail REITs to go overseas to do acquisition, because in Singapore it's very difficult to buy good shopping mall, and there are still limited supply or big or those land that are available to develop and turn it into the mall. Right, so it's very difficult for them to look for opportunities here. So more and more, I think Singapore REITs will go outside of Singapore. This is the trend that is likely going to continue.
Then we would have to not just look at the Singapore retail scene, because I think we've already discussed during this roundtable that we Singaporeans still like to go to the mall. It's a small city state. It's convenient for us. But then once you go into like Australia, or they have malls in the US, then the
different
situation is different. And then you really have to take a look at how their malls are going to
supply
survive over there. Supply as well. So it's a different animal altogether. And of course, if you have an office commercial component to the REIT, then like MCT, right? MCT owns Mapletree Commercial Trust, owns VivoCity, but they have office property as well.
Business park,
it's part of their REIT. So it's not really a pure play Singapore retail. You got to take into account the office, cycles as well, and how that affects the rents in the office spaces and all of that. So if you take a look at some of the unit prices of the REITs in Singapore right now, I think their prices are probably like 10 to 20% from the pre-COVID peak. Right, they haven't recovered fully, and the DPU
most of them are down.
Still down
20%.
About that. So the dividends have come down. Would you think that there's still an opportunity to look at Singapore retail REITs?
I think for now, at the time of this interview, I think we are pretty much a lot of retail REITs are depressed. So if you are confident that the retail scenes in Singapore is going to recover in the mid-term to long-term, I think this is right now the time to really look at some of the retail REITs and pick them up while their valuation is still very attractive.
The high quality one.
The high quality one. Of course, not all of them are good quality. You need to do your homework. You need to do your own research, which is very important.
So not a recommendation to pick up any of REITs, but you're saying that right now is still probably a reasonable time to look at some of the high quality retail REITs in Singapore. So I'm not going to mention any names. I don't know. But so it's still alright. So what do you guys think, Kenny or Victor? Would you, if you were to look at REITs right now, would you be interested?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And also, I mean, I look at retailers at the same time. So, I mean, it's the same retailer and REITs because it's a laggard, because they want to see the economy recover before the price recovers. So it will take some time. They want to have that confirmation before it moves, unlike certain tech stock or something that they can project that it'll be all right, because they know that some will die, some will survive, but sometimes they do not know which, right? Like so
that's probably the reason why the REITs hasn't really like recovered fully yet, because you still need people to go have disposable income and go shop. And they have and it's going to be a successful and thriving ecosystem over there.
Yeah, that's why you have to do your own analysis to determine which one will survive, will do well, and which one will not, and then that's where you benefit, right? The opportunity cost. You cannot wait till like everything is
Once it's back, then everything is back. It's been too late.
it'll be too late already.
So part of investing is going in at when things don't look so great, but moving down is probably going to be okay. Or even better down the road.
Just take a longer term perspective.
Longer term perspective. And that will really help with you as a long-term investor. Yeah. All right. So thank you guys. I think that was a really, really good discussion on Singapore, the retail scene in Singapore, and the retail REITs as well, and how they're going to survive or thrive in a post-COVID world. So thank you so much. So thank you once again, Rusmin, Victor, and Kenny.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
My name is Adam. We are all from the Fifth Person. So if you enjoyed this roundtable discussion, we have a lot more coming up for you. Just subscribe to this channel, and if you like this video, just hit like. Any questions or comments, just put them in the comment box below. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Any questions, we can answer them as well if you have any questions about this discussion. And thank you so much for watching this, and we'll see you around next time.
See you.